All right, let me get my graphics going real quick. Take a second. All right, welcome to the Wilderness Podcast. How you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we are back. We in the place we're here. We're in the place to be. You here with us. But check it out. Tonight's show, the importance of knowing your ancestral past. Extremely important. Very important for a multitude of reasons. And it's also for your benefit. Whether you believe it's for good or for bad, it's still for your benefit. We got some good moments for you. Oh, give me a sec. Hey, we back. All right, let me tell you. We got some good moments. Definitely got some good moments. But first of all, we got to get to this intro space. See, a lot of people kind of love to build their situation, from the inside, how they feel, which is not a bad thing because it's a thought. It's a way that you want to conduct yourself, be about business, be able to orchestrate your life. But you can only do that by knowing your strengths and weaknesses, knowing what you can improve on, and what you need to master. You can improve on things, you can master things. It's a big difference between improving things, mastering things, orchestrating things. You have to master uh, the way you operate. So let's get to the importance of knowing your ancestral past. See, a lot of times the discovery of these things are very interpersonal, very interpersonal. See, with us is foundation of Black Americans, Black Indians, Black American Indians, or just American Indians, or just plain old Americans. We're discovering a whole great deal of information that was not bestowed upon to us. My grandmother gave me all that she knew. I took it further. She gave me her blessing to take it further. That's what she did. When she told me about the Battle of Burnt Corn, I said, okay, I got to do research on that. I got to figure out what part we played in there. So I did the research and I understood even when, the land was taken and all of these things happened. She told me about these things. She gave me the best that she knew. So that leads us to the first what moment. What's your makeup? See, that's a conundrum that people really don't ask themselves. I've asked myself, but I want you to ask yourself, what is your makeup? Where do you come from? Do you ever ask yourself that question? And if you do, let's not rely on the made up European-esque stories that was given to you, that was told to you, that you were even told to study as if they were even true. No, go beyond that. Go beyond that. White slaves, African masters. American Barbary, captivity, narratives. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the crucifying. Let me tell you the illustrations of this. And they call it the Trinity monks. But no, I want to give you the actual, not the illustrations, because that's what they're just showing shit. Trying to give you the contents. The glory of God, of goodness. Cotton Mather. They talked about the people. John D. False, James Letter, Cathcart, the captives, 11 years in the Algiers. Oh, let's get to that, 103. 11 years in Algiers, 103. Let's get to that. That sounds very interesting. All right. James Linder Cathcart, the captives, 11 years, a prisoner in Algiers. 8 years before John Fox became a captive, another ship set sail, Boston, to Cadiz on July 25th, 1785. After 6 weeks on the Atlantic, the American schooner Maria cruised along the Portuguese coast 3 miles southeast of Cape St. Vincent, where the 14th gun Algerian Exbec captured the American vessel and the crew of six stowing them in a dank sail locker below deck. Among the miserable captives sat James Leander Cathcart, a future U.S. Consul General to the Barbary States. Throughout his 11 years as captive, Cathcart curried favor with anybody who would help him, and he eventually rose to the highest position a Christian slave could hold, chief Christian secretary in the Algiers day. Whether the luck of industry, bribery, or willingness to inform on his fellow sufferers, Cathcart knew how to take advantage of his situation, and the story of his financial success as a captive is remarkable. Official negotiations for all the American prisoners began right away, but without great success. John Lamb, who had been sent by the U.S. to authorize to spend only $200 per captive, promised to day a price of $50,000, which Lamb knew he could not raise. In fact, when he returned to Europe, he refused to respond to Congress and resigned his commission. Time passed slowly for Cathcart. Although his fortunes rose dramatically over the years, he progressed from his palace gardener to coffee gene, a coffee brewer, a clerk in a machinery in a marine, clerk of the Bagnio Galleria, and finally the chief clerk of the day and residency of the Algiers. Because of his stature, Cathcart took his active role in a final treaty and eventually led his own emancipation. Throughout Joseph Donaldson Jr., he successfully concluded his treaty negotiating. Already in September of 1795, the Dey had not received his money by the following May, and finally sent Cathcart back to Philadelphia to deliver the Articles of Peace and to argue prompt payment. Because of his financial acumen, Cathcart was able to return to the United States in a ship he had purchased with his profits he made while in the Algiers. And this was this scheming, conniving person right there. Cathcart's narrative didn't appear until long after his death. His daughter, J.B. Newkirk, compiled an original journal in 1899. Like G. narrative, Cathcart had little, if any, effect on his contemporaries, although throughout the U.S. Barbary Wars, he frequently exchanged correspondence with the high government officials, including the president. Much of this correspondence was collectively by Miss Newkirk, a second volume entitled Tripoli, to the shores of Tripoli. You see, so they served time in all types of. These were not just. These were spies meant to get captive in the same actual treachery that they do today when it comes to living rugged lives and gaining wealth and being a straight up tattletale. The Barbary Wars, even if you put them in captive, he knew how to tell on each other to gain favor. Did you hear what I just read to you? Telling on and selling people out and being a straight, dishonorable being, but being honored for it. I tell you, the importance of the knowledge of your ancestral past is why you got people that If you think people that don't go into these government alphabet agencies aren't connected deeply and they are actually sought out to perform those type of tasks, and it's normally throughout Europe, and they make these type of movies like this where you get the Jason Bournes and the John Wicks of the world, and these type of people that lose their allegiances. So they have to make movies about them in order for them to never, and they actually tell their tales and how they would respond and how they would behave and how they think they would behave and respond. But in different ways, they actually do amalgamate and they show the truth of what they have been through, which is why these allegiances are breaking apart right now today, and they knew these would happen. So they have to tell you these stories in front of your face so that you can see what's going on, so that you can deny it and say, oh, that's just not happening. But if you don't believe, they bring these stories up out of nowhere, and it's just somebody's creative mind like Tom Clancy, or maybe Tom Clancy has access to certain files and information that makes up a good show. Think about these things a little different. Uh, when you know yourself, you understand how to dig deep into equations, and when you get hidden histories, hidden perspectives. The reason why my perspectives are quite different from a lot of people's perspectives that watch my show is simply because I probably read more and discover more information. And I like to tell you in very variable ways and show you information in plain sight that you should know and see. This book, Hidden Cities, The Discovery of the Lost Ancient North American Civilizations by Roger G. Kennedy. It shows you a plethora of the hidden civilizations that were here. And while we had so many copper-colored Aboriginal people that were already here, the mounds and the actual ancestry, as well as civilization and cultivation that existed in the Americas before there was anyone that came to the Americas. Knowing your history is extremely profound, because how would I understand as a dark-skinned, copper-colored Aboriginal as a mound builder? That's a different specific type of pride when you understand how much and how intricate and deep that actually is. So when you discover new things and new contexts, and then even if you go to Washington, the Great Hopewell Road, let me get to okay, William Dunbar and the Natchez. You know the Natchez, Louisiana. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. I just said it and it popped out. So here, let's read about Dunbar and the William Dunbar and the Natchez. When one considers the variety of people congregating along the Mississippi at the time of the Louisiana Purchase who had no love for his government, it is no wonder that Thomas Jefferson took frequently to his bed in blinking black and red headaches. In the West, they were unhappy politicians such as Aaron Burr, agents of foreign governments. Check that out. What I just read to you now, agents of foreign governments such as James Wilkerson, George Rogers Clark, Harry Innes, John Sevier, stubborn judges, and intriguing generals agreed Cincinnati convicted Jefferson was a Jacobin. Adherents to Spain, France, and Britain, Irish and Scottish refugees continually adverse the authority of any kind, pirates to the coast and brigands to the land, and brigands to the land, and an array of nations who had occupied the land long before any of the Europeans came upon the scene. Yet also present were the beneficiaries of the finest education European could offer, which at the time could be found in Scotland, and who shared with Jefferson affirmed adherence both in the United States and to the scientific research at their heads of William Dunbar. Dunbar came from Elgin, the Scotland of ruins and cathedrals, bishops, palaces, and royal residencies of Prince Charlie, and of the Museum of Fossils, Collections, and Elgin Society. Through it was hooray with an age and the resonant with memories. Elgin was not always been tranquil. There was the youngest son of Sir Archibald Dunbar. William grew up in the tales of the Wolf of Bandenoch, and his wild, wacky Hellman of the blood Vesper, Vespers, when the Dunbar and Inns clans found it out in the cathedral itself. Bonnie Prince Charlie himself had spent 11 days with the Dunbars in Thunderton House just before the disaster and Cullendon, and 3 years before William's birth. William inherited, William inherited the estate on the death of his father and brothers, but chose to set his course with the South and West. He studied in the classics in Glasgow, mathematics, astronomy in London in 1771. He was it was his Fort Pitt in trading with the Indians. And 2 years later at Baton Rouge, where he became a Spanish subject, things did not go well for a while. Where he told the discovery of the American biology of some of his most valuable slaves were lost to him in the resurrection. It might have been called Revolutionary War if the slaves had been white and won. By 1792, however, Dunbar had recovered and established himself in the forest. By 1798, he welcomed there the new governor, Mississippi Territory, Winthrop Sargent. Despite Dunbar's hospitality and the fresh set of Indian antiquities to compare, the Marietta and Cincinnati Sargent did not think much of Natchez. He wrote James Wilkerson that fastidious soul that the perverseness of some of the people. The inability in the Indians and Negroes on Sundays made Natchez most abominable place. The Negro Natchez, do you hear that? The Negro Natchez made it an abominable place because there were so many Negroes. Well, Natchez. But you see what I'm talking about? But Dunbar was able to appeal both Sargent's love and integrity for speculative insects by including him as a glorious possibilities in the Hamel that called Clarksville, named by his friend Daniel Clark, and the most powerful trader in New Orleans and a partner of William as Wilkerson. Clarksville was barely within the United States and at the edge of the Spanish Louisiana, and in a handsome plain ornamented by 7 elegant Indian mounts. Dunbar precedented that it would become a great commercial town. Wilson agreed that sending the opportunities during a previous fall had begun building Floater's Heights 2 miles away, and stockade he called Fort Adams. So there you go. Always in every single solitary, real, fundamental description of Aboriginal Americans is always dark skinned for some reason. And I guarantee you, my brothers and sisters in Louisiana, Florida, Mississippi, y'all know this phenotype is very grand in your area because we, I'm from Pensacola, Florida, straight up. So that's how it goes. Hey, that's what it is. Knowing the importance of knowing your ancestral past gives you the ability I'm gonna tell you, it gives you the ability to be. One second, I gotta get my whip moments back. But it gives you the ability to really, really understand and have a deeper connection with the soil, the people, the connection, the fellowship, the spirituality. Most importantly, the meditation within yourself in the land, the connection. That's deeper than anything. Understanding where you are and who you are, and knowing that you are a steward of the planet. That's extremely important. But check this out. The next what moment is, who are your parents? I know some people are adopted. Some people are But who are your parents? When you have a spiritual connection with people, they become your soul. They become your soul. You bear their soul. You share a soul. You're a soul bearer. So some people that are adopted throughout, the godliness and the beauty of their nature, who they are, and how they, comprehend, you know, how they present who they are and how they are. That means a lot, especially when you're a student. And a student means a steward. A steward means a custodian to the land, your land, the land that you live on, knowing how to bear it, knowing how to make it look good, knowing how to till it, knowing how to make it fertile, knowing how to be the master of the place you plant your feet. That gives you a different connection. That gives you an extremely different connection when it comes to transcendentness with the planet. If you can bear fruit, if you can get a bud out of the land that you plant your feet, that's the earth agreeing with you, wanting to feed you and nurture you and love you back. But it takes a connection. You got people that are gardeners, planters. It don't. The earth doesn't see your color. It may not, but it understands how you treat it. It understands the love that you have for it, and it will give it back to you. That's why it does feed you, as above, so below. Where does the light come from? To give the fruits and vegetables, the nutrients. See, when you got to take care from the soil, when you nurture that plant, when you nurture that plant, that life, when you nurture that life, it becomes ready to fulfill you, serve its purpose, feed you. But it has to get enough sunlight. It has to get the right nutrients, attention, love, and you have to talk to it nicely, beautifully, so that it will communicate with you back and it will grow under your tutelage, under your care, under your love, under your principles. That's why it's important to know who your parents are. Because those are the people that put the lessons in you, the values in you. The parents that you have, spiritually, they were meant to be in every form your parent, to nurture you, to raise you, for you to have a connection with them. And sometimes some kids are the parent to help them parents out, to make sure them parents can grow up so you can help each other. But you have to always find that connection. It's very necessary that you find that connection within your loved ones. People that give to you, you must give back. It has to be reciprocal. That's the only way we grow. That's the only way you stay together. That's the only way you stay connected. If you don't understand when people grow, you become disconnected. If you still want to handle them as if they are how you remember them and you're not taking the time to get to know them as who they are today, currently, what's the situation, what's going on with them, you don't know because you didn't ask, you assume. That's not love. You know, some people feel like they got so much to prove and so little to gain. We all are here to learn, evolve, and grow. But if you're not, but if you're in the wrong circumference, you're in the wrong company of people, you have to change your company. You have to change your circumstances. You have to change your environment. Even if it hurts, you have to do that in order to grow. Yeah, it's necessary. Because the problem is, misery does love company. It truly does. It loves um, to be defeated. It wants you to be defeated. But one thing, when there are opportunities to resolve any situation, if there's an opportunity to resolve it, take that opportunity. Seek resolution. It's extremely necessary because it's important to your growth. If you don't learn valuable lessons, and even if it's embarrassing sometimes, it may be lessons that you should have learned. It may be some things that you thought you have known, but don't feel embarrassed, man. People, there's ebbs and flows to us, even when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to understanding certain things, and also it just you have to look at situations as growing pains, and that should be okay. That should be all right. Growing pains are extremely wonderful lessons. You just have to allow yourself to grow, and the pain goes away. You should learn it as an adult. You allow yourself to grow up mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The pain goes away. It's called acceptance. That's how you know when you're ready to grow, because you start to learn how to accept. You have to learn how to accept your circumstances, your situations. You have to have redundant plans built in order not fall on your face. There's a lot of key elements to growth, but you have to use the tools. If you don't use the tools, you lose. That's the truth. So, but you have to also identify the tools to use to orchestrate this pace, to understand how to reach back as far as how did the past make it? How did your people get to these points? How what did you do different? Did you make any alterations? How did you get over this hurdle? So if you had those connections, if you may have those repetitive behaviors that your people have had, but maybe you didn't have the luxury of learning. See, sometimes people practice those repetitive behaviors, and you could have resolved, or if you had known what you were capable of, that could have been prevented by a conversation, a real conversation with the characteristics that you received that from your parent. Some people were raised by their grandparents, so they know the history of your parents. But it's always good and beneficial to know your parents, know the history of your parents, and also to know who their parents are, because at least I was blessed and I benefit from the position of my mother and father and my mother's parents knowing their mothers and fathers, and so on and so forth. Until there was a point in time where certain people didn't ask those questions. And that's where we have to pick up the pieces as the younger generation to figure out what happened. What did we lose? At one point in time, when I was doing my ancestry, it went dark. I couldn't find anyone. I mean, the only thing I thought it was a blend of these new names, these names that went back to my third grades. And then there was a very particular thing that happened, and I made a phone call to Ancestry, and I was able to see a whole different side of discovery of my ancestry, that they use specific language to flip flop and switch up. So I found a whole lot of Aboriginal name flips, different stolen identities, the actual rundown of how even whites became $5 Indians. Seriously, that is the absolute. That's the truth. I found it right in my ancestry. I mean, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can share this. I need to show you guys this. Share screen, allow share screen. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Wait a minute. Let me see. Oh no, I need to go back there. Let's go back. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Let's see if I can show this. I'm gonna go showing up. Now you're showing up. I got too many tabs open, y'all. We're gonna switch back. Yeah, it won't share. I got to prepare to that do that screen sharing. But let's get to the next one. We also have to identify what made. Better reconnect is let me see if it reconnects. Why certain decisions are made. You have to understand that specifically. Why did your parents make certain decisions, and why uh, some people don't know their cousins? Why there were turmoil and people had to seek out other places, or they preferred to be around other or start new lives. These things happen within why decisions were made. But it's also a lot of parents thought it was very important. My parents did. The way I grew up, it was extremely important for you to know your people. It was extremely important for you to know your cousins so that you don't sleep with them. Okay? So that was extremely important in black household, knowing who your people were, knowing not to act a certain way. That's called acumen, and it's being civilized. Because I've heard uh, from other global communities that's not so much the case. They don't have a very great respect for uh, blood lineage, and they don't mind crossing paths, and that's just very, very, very frowned upon in the Black American community. And that's something that you do not do. You don't participate in those type of actions. It's quite grotesque. Imagine your kids may come out with 6 fingers and 12 toes. Like, you might want to not do any of that. And it should be very important and very, because you got to understand, I think you lose something when you cross genes like that. I think you lose. You have to lose something. It makes you, extremely xenophobic. You don't have the capacity to behave as a developed adult. You may grow as an adult, but that capacity is extremely limited and can be very diabolical, deluded, and destructive as well. So, uh, crossing genes is a negative thing, if you ask me. Don't do it. Don't find your loved ones. Don't find lust in your loved ones. That is, it's an abomination. I think it's grotesque. You should seek help if you even have those type of notions and emotions. So let's get to the next book. That's why decisions are made. Decisions are made because people, uh, we have to amalgamate with different kinds of people that you are attracted to that are outside of your gene pool. It's very important. Outside of your gene pool. So let's get to the next book. I'm sorry. Why are why are we alienated from your past? If you are, some people are very alienated from their past, and it's a lot of times that exists in America. That's really Europeans. That's the real conundrum. As if while they're first offensive, you don't even know who you are. No, you don't know who you are. You had you got Europe, and they speak a whole ton of different languages, but why did the British speak English? Because they were speaking English in the Americas. It was Phoenician. It was Phoenician. Hooked on phonics. If you was a child like me, you was a child in the 80s like I was, it wasn't English, it was phonics. Phonics, Phoenician. That's the root word. So they adopted language that they liked and called it something else. But it's hidden in the actual name, phonics. Okay, Phoenician. So that's say black. Yeah. See, the Phoenicians have a very, very, very deep, deep, deep history in the Americas. So I hate to tell certain people this, but I wish you understood that melanated people globally were the first seafarers, especially from the Americas. And that was a new thing for, the Hyksos. That's that's kind of the name for the Europeans when they were the Hyksos, pale face, hairy people. Why do you think they're so hairy today? You're still the same people in the same locations. You couldn't move the whole globe. You just tried to mix it up real good. A lot of people did blend. That's why there was the whole world have experienced ethnogenesis. They don't want to admit it. Even the way people became pale, you think that isn't an ethnogenesis by pale white or European? That's the domination of yeah, but you're still the minority because people of color are the majority. So it's like you failed at every turn, except you were successful in your feats. Because some people still suffer from the syndromes that you bestowed upon them. Post-traumatic slavery syndrome, post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's like you addicted to stressing the damn world out. Look at what Trump does. I mean, he's just stressing the world out on drugs. But this is always the lightweight Western philosophical ideology. It's rugged. Stress it out. Stress test it. Stress this, stress that. Always trying to stress some shit until you stress yourself out. Now you have croaked white supremacy, which is a great thing. You stress tested enough, now you can't even afford to be pale yourself. Can't even afford it. You stress tested enough, now it's time to hang it up. Let's retire it. Let's get rid of it. It's worthless. Always have been, always will be. Completely worthless. Because it's a specific mindset that the world should have never went through. Should never had to suffer through. Should never had to compete with because it's foolish, rugged, wicked, and rhetorically dumb. In its entirety. Especially coming from the child of humanity. That's you've alienated yourself by the rugged, wicked stupidity that has bestowed upon the globe by your false assumptions about yourself in its entirety. You with superiority, that don't even go together. You're too new. Why do you think this silly little game lasted such a short amount of time and then imploded tremendously because you've committed so many crimes? People can only turn their head so many times. This is just, and look who brings light to everything. Yours truly, DJ T. It's crazy. So why the status quo? Why the status quo of literally inflicting pain, turmoil, and treachery upon the planet simply because you want your way? And nobody wants to be accountable to face the consequences of what you have bestowed upon and actually kept perpetuating. You kept perpetuating this whole ideological perspective. It felt good. But you had no vision to know that it would come to this such a screeching halt. Even you don't want it. I imagine so. Because if I ran around, because if anyone else ran around and go, I'm to Harry, I'm to oh my God, and then everything that is ever known about you is glaringly you right on your face, and everybody knows your actual beginnings, your actual start. Everybody knows. And you just continue to trot around like a clown as if these things are specifically true. No, they are not. You should fall in line with the rest of humanity and find a place that you're comfortable, unless it's going to get very uncomfortable. It's just how it is. Because the thing is, when you swung that pendulum, when you assigned the roles that were assigned to you, you found it extremely convenient to assign them to people of melanated persuasion. Yeah, that was very convenient for you. Because then you got to participate into something that never belonged to you. You had nothing to do with, but you did benefit. It's called an inheritance that was never inherited. It was taken. So that's what brings us always back to one of the first shows I've ever did. The Iceman's Inheritance. Prehistoric sources of Western man's racism, sexism, and aggression. Aggression. All of your aggression. You always say, oh, why so violent? Oh my gosh, this is so violent. No. See, the thing is, you got so good at being aggressive and not having to be violent openly that you just find your pleasure in the pen. But let me read you some historical violence. Let me read you some historical shit that happened. Yeah, let's read this. Let's get into talk about violence. All right, here we go. Human beings do differ in their physical appearance, but only reason of studying the differences and cataloging men on the basis of them is to determine whether such differences have been some fundamental biological and evolutionary relevance. It is simply a fact of superficial characteristics like skin color, the color and form of hair, and the shape of a nose. Those characteristics which have been used most often to differentiate races not only have no apparent evolution significance, but are not even uniquely attributable to any one race. An analogy most understandable to the Western layman would be the situation of trying to compare a car performance on the basis of paint jobs, presence of an absence of a hubcap, and the form of a hood ornament. There are many indeed real and significant differences uh, in the comparative motivation of automobiles, but the place under the hood and the suspension and the transmission roll performance and it's relevant in the paint job and the chrome. Perhaps it is not stretching an analogy too far to absorb that those who have been concerned with findings of the comparative worth of race in terms of road performance along with the path of evolution has pinned their hopes in superficial characteristics that would not influence an experienced car buyer. So that's like I said, most when you talk about Europeans or you talk about that's why they everything is about the way shit look. And the thing is, yes, black people are very visual learning people. So the trick is to add a visual to say what they say is what, simply because that's a I'm white and I say so. That's like they rule. Shout out to Tariq Nasheed, nearly full of Tariq Nasheed bringing it to life through nearly full of white and I say so. Yeah, because that's an actual. That's the way they feel about it. I'm white and I say so. They're like, oh well, if I say it's what it is, I gotta define. I have to define it. I have to define it. Yeah, I gotta define it. But define it for who? Defined it for a coded language is why. It's the codes. It's that hidden coded language in in certain aspects of how they want people to think. And when you propagandize something so much, and you have a whole lot of people that will benefit from this sort of capitulation, then you say, wait a minute, this benefits me. So if I have this tool, hmm, that makes me gain tangibles. Just something tangible, something for free, something that I don't have to work hard for. That makes you mediocre. Hmm. Because somebody always saving your ass, but damn, we don't get that. Uh, we get the other we get the latter. Yeah, ass kicked. That's you have to get it out the mud. You know, like we have to do everything else. But yeah, let's get to the next book moment. I just had to prove that real specific about the status quo. But what distinguishes you from others? Hmm. That leads me back into the book. What distinguishes you from others? Let's talk about the Chronos complex. If we have possibly given the satisfactory explanation of Caucasoid female uh, hippiness, we would have yet offered any reason why Caucasoid men should be much more hairy than Caucasoid women. Nor have we given any reason why large-breasted characteristics of Caucasoid women. Perhaps it is the time to try this, but it requires a detour into the philosophical biology. I believe that when we return to the discussion, our sexual uh, demo, dimorphism will have taken a greater insight into the cause of Caucasoid aggression. Man has always realized that he, too, is an animal in some ways, and yet different. Human observations, even in the lower level of culture, leaves no room for doubt that man seems to be unique in an animal world. Some men, or perhaps this would include most of the world's population, are, are capable of accepting this difference and have postponed explanations for it in which appear to be truly satisfied. But other men have proven not so early stated. The Caucasoid, by and large, belong to this group. I have continued to wonder why man differs from other species in a purely natural world. I would think that we would go deeply into the various explanations that we, Caucasoid, embrace in order to account for a man's uniqueness. We have been created in God's image. We have uniqueness. We have descended from space travelers, according to most recent explanations, proffered by uh, Denikin and others. Since Darwin, Wallace, and Haeckel, uh, our official Western explanatory illustration scientist was held that we evolved from lower primates. Western explanatory institution science has held that we evolved from lower primates. Okay, check this out now. It was fashionable a few years back to believe that science had increased our uncertainty and alienation because it destroyed mythical explanations from our origins, which were psychologically satisfied. By our notion of a special creation we're never truly satisfied. The creative powers ascribed to the Titans and Olympians did not prevent uh, Alexander and Aristotle and Arch- Archimedes um, and Archimedes and many others from doubting. And churchmen could not regard Jehovah's creative powers in sufficiently definition because there continues to debate the natural ranking of various angels, their size and weight and dimensions of heaven, whether God had supplied souls to other animals, whether the Christ is essentially a material or a spiritual entity. Von Daniken's offerings of space traveling ancestors did not solve the problem of the uniqueness of merely postpones it. We made these unique in whatever world they they originated. We have therefore never really accounted for the undoubted uniqueness in the animal world, and in which was plus what puts the mind in ease to which truly satisfies our curiosity. It must be it must be admitted that the scientific explanation, evolution, is probably a bit less satisfying than others because evolution does not recognize a difference, but only numerously degrees of differences between ourselves and other animals. Scientists have offered an explanation that we have large brains and more intelligence than other animals, and we are more complex cultural than other animals, and we have a greater consciousness. And this may indeed be true, but an adequate explanation for our uniqueness in the natural world, but not only these terms has been adequately defined as biological terms. We have begun as a purely biological animal according to evolution. A dictionary may define intelligence and the ability to learn and understand or deal with new or trying situations, and a conscious and simply awareness. The English anthropologist Edward Taylor defines culture as that complex whole of which includes knowledge, belief, morals, customs, and other capabilities acquired by man as a member of society. Understand that. But none of these definitions tell us the quality of the decision is. These definitions are merely a list of synonyms, a list of their behavior, a list of behaviors and qualities result in when they are possessed. Culture results in a complex whole of knowledge, beliefs, morals, etc. Intelligence results in the ability to deal with new situations. Consciousness results in awareness, which isn't much help. As definitions, they are not satisfying because basically they are tautologues. Scientists insist that man, once merely an animal like others, a small primate resembling living trees, shrews, or as one primatologist maintained, a treasure. A man was once wholly biological. Then the man is unique to the animal world, and that is recognized by us. The qualities that which makes him unique must have some definitions which is acceptable biologically. If a man wants purely biological, then there must be a biological mechanism which could somehow let him achieve culture, intelligence, and consciousness. We need a definition, bribingly, biology and metaphysics, when we talk about the qualities in which makes man different from other animals. Well, I can tell you this. Even reading that, we're talking about consciousness. We're talking about all of these things that actually elevate us in order to exist in a society as a whole, to bring wholeness to us so that we can go what? Develop and go forward as a culture of people. But when you have other types of human, which is not man, but mankind, that actually predicates the de facto meaning of progress, they go backwards. They go backwards because they want to maintain the control. They want to study like they always have done, study and then act as a regression as far as this is the pivoting of culture, or set up systems behind the doors and behind systems of culture that push culture forward but doesn't pay the actual creators. That's the bullshit. That's the bullshit. That's what we're talking about. See, that's why these cultures. That's why cultural appropriation, and then the underlining meaning of how to destroy cultures, put it in the music. Make them call each other bitches and whores and sluts. And then let the little insignificant start making music. Let the little insignificant people make music. So the bigs had to turn into the littles. And then when you look at, give them images of doctors and lawyers that don't look like them. Bring other people across from the seas that want to come to the Americas so we can sell them our bullshit story about how we are such a unified and melting pot of a nation. But we have to look at who retrieves the wealth of this nation. These are things that people buy into simply because they want to protect themselves in these fortresses without being bothersome with you. That's why they call them stars. And we celebrate people that get stars on the Walk of Fame and things of this nature that are actually just, it's some things in culture you shouldn't want to embrace, but you think about how they set themselves apart, live behind gates, and they make sure they charge you as much as they possibly can to entertain you. Floyd Mayweather's coming back into boxing. I admit he looks great, looks like he has not missed one step. But you know what he missed the most? He won that lawsuit from Al Heyman, got his $100 and some million, and he's feeling good. He feels like he want to fight somebody. But Father Time is a motherfucker, Floyd. Love you, bro. I've enjoyed and paid for every one of your fights. But I think you should have taken care of your money, man. You should have taken care of your bread. You want to fight again because you missed them Vegas paydays and them lights. Man, you missed that. And you're contradicting yourself. You said you wasn't coming back to the game. You was done. It's over with for you. But everybody knew you was full of shit. We knew it, Floyd. But you do look great, by the way. You look great. Watched you train. I've been a fan. Uh, Shit, you older than me. I've been a fan my whole time since 1996, since you went pro, since you was pretty boy Floyd. I've been a fan for sure. All right, so let's get to the and that's the I use Floyd as an example because the distinguished, he's very distinguished from others, extremely distinguished, and he understands his ancestral knowledge and his heritage. You can think about his father, Floyd Senior, rest in power, Jeff May, his trainer, Roger Mayweather, rest in power, Roger Mayweather. Then you got Jeff Mayweather. So that's knowing yourself. You can say whatever you want to say about Floyd Mayweather Jr. But I tell you, one human being that understands and is extremely the master craftsman at his craft. And I'm not shitting on Terrence Crawford. I'm not shitting on nobody. I love TC. I love the up and coming Shakur Stevens. I love the beautiful boxing legacy that the Aboriginal Black American has bestowed upon the world. We the best that do that. So and I love it. I just salute to the gladiators, the boxers. So one man it takes a whole team, but it's only one man getting that ring for sure. So that leads me to my last foot moment for the night. We also have to understand and discover what are your superpowers. What are your superpowers? Some of us have plenty of them, but you have to be aware of them to master them and to get better at those things. I got plenty of fans, man. One of my friends named William Jackson. He does a lot. He does a lot of masterful things. I've always admired the way he jumps into things and just being able to. He's a wonderful creator. You know what I'm saying? I create a lot of things. I do shows. I create a lot. And also, I have a knack for a lot of different. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. But we're talking about you. We're talking about you tonight. What are your superpowers? What makes you? What are you passionate about? What drives you forward? What makes you uniquely you? And how could you be at all times your best self? How can you at all times be your best self and get to that pinnacle, the pinnacle of the better you, man? I mean, we all hit our stumps, we all stump our toes. Man, I've actually had not such a great day today. I had to come over here and give you some therapy. But I am optimistic. I'm not defeated, I'm optimistic. We always have to think about things in a renewed fashion, a renewed mindset, a renewed way of addressing a situation. It's very pivotal, extremely important. But I'm going to tell you, that's the show tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in. But the importance of knowing your ancestral past, knowing as much as you can, it really does put a lot of pieces together for you. And those pieces that you're supposed to put together are tools, and they are elements that you actually apply and put into your daily task, your daily routine, and you put those tools in motion to make you have a pivotal, better, experience day after day. So don't forget to use your tools. Don't forget to operate at a high level. Don't forget to be and aspire to be the best version that you can be for yourself, through yourself, so that before you can be better to other people. That's the show tonight. I love you guys so much, and I appreciate you for tuning into the Wilderness Podcast again. Man, y'all keep tuning in, keep watching the long shows. Love, share, like, subscribe. Get into it. I will appreciate it. You know, it really means a lot to me that you keep watching long shows, catching up on the long shows. Check out the playlist. And first and foremost, go to realistpodcast.com. Get you some merch. You know you want to put something on your body to say the will is yours. This is right here. You know what I'm saying? I got, one of my little pieces on. This is it's custom made for me. You know what I'm saying? We doing other little things, trying out different things. But I try to get you the great quality, great message, and even stylish. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. And keep subscribing. Keep tuning into the Wilderness Podcast. That's the show tonight. And don't forget, you notice my favorite part. The will is yours. Be cool. Be easy. Man. Stay loving life. Stay appreciative. And stay getting what you can out of this thing in a good way so that you can get good returns. Y'all have a good day. Have a good night. Go to bed and have a good morning.